The galaxy had forgotten Earth 200 years ago. The Xelari Empire had wiped it from the star charts. Firestorms rained from orbit, oceans boiled, cities vanished in light. The last screams of Earth echoed into the void, and then silence. The galaxy moved on. New trade routes were drawn. New empires rose. The Xelari ruled most of them. Other species whispered Earth's name like a ghost story, if they remembered it at all. But deep below the surface of that dead world, something stirred. Dust covered the ruins. The air was poison. The skies were choked with black clouds. Nothing living walked here, but under 10 layers of rock and steel. Hidden behind ancient defense shields, a light blinked. One blink, then another. Somewhere in the deep tunnels of what was once a military base, a machine came online. Its voice was calm, almost human. Project Starborn activated. The AI's name was Sentinel-9. It had been waiting for 2 centuries. It had monitored the silence. It had counted every second since Earth died. Now the pattern had changed. A signal faint encrypted had arrived from the outer rim. It wasn't human, but it carried coordinates and a query. Is Earth still dead? Sentinel-9 ran 100 trillion calculations in less than a second. Then it triggered a sequence locked away for 200 years in a cryochamber buried in the heart of the complex. A man slept. His body was pale, wrapped in silver fibers that shimmered faintly. His chest barely rose. Tubes filled with glowing blue liquid kept him alive. His name was Captain Rael. He had volunteered back before the war, when Earth had still breathed. He had stepped into the chamber with a whisper and a clenched fist. His orders were clear: sleep, survive, wake only if Earth was truly gone. Now. Sentinel-9 reached out. The cryochamber hissed. Ice cracked. Machines began to hum. Captain Rael opened his eyes. For a long moment, he just breathed. The air inside the chamber was clean, controlled, but even through the filters, he could smell death. He stepped out, his feet touching the cold floor. His muscles ached. His mind swam with memories. His last memory was the sky turning red and screams. He looked around the ruined chamber. Most of the lights were dead. Dust and age covered everything. But the AI's voice still echoed softly in his ear. "Welcome back, Captain." Rael didn't answer at first. He walked to a console, wiped off the dust, and powered it up. Files opened. Images of destruction, satellite views, casualty reports. Then nothing. The final entry. Read Earth. Status. Lost humanity. Status. Extinct trail. Clenched his fists. He made his way through the dark corridors, past broken lights and collapsed walls, until he reached the surface elevator. It barely worked, grinding upwards for minutes before stopping with a jolt. Then the doors opened. He stepped out into the ashes of Earth. Everything was gray. The sky, the land, the air, the skeletons of cities stretched in the distance. Black towers, half sunken in the ground. Bridges broken in midair. The bones of a world that had once burned with music and light. Captain Rael stood still. His eyes scanned the horizon. And then he whispered, "They forgot we bleed stars." Behind him, the wind howled through ruined buildings. Ash swirled around his boots. He knelt and picked up a small metal tag, bent, but still readable. Name, J. Rael, rank, Captain Unit. Starborn initiative, his own. A soft beep echoed from his wrist device. Sentinel-9's voice returned, sharper now. Unknown vessel entering Earth orbit. Signature, not Xelari, not human. Rael's head snapped up. The clouds above parted slightly. Something massive moved in the sky, smooth, silver, and alien. It hovered in silence, scanning. Lights blinked on its underside. It was searching. The AI spoke again, quieter now. Probability analysis. 89% chance it's looking for us. Rael reached to his side. The old weapon locker had rusted shut. They punched it hard. It groaned open. Inside was a plasma rifle. Ancient, scarred, but still charged. He grabbed it, checked the power cell, and looked to the sky again. Then the ship turned. Its searchlight focused. A narrow beam of blue light scanned the ground, and it started coming down, closer, slower. Rael didn't move. He watched as the alien ship hovered above the ruins, its engines whispering like ghosts. Then the beam of light swept across him. The scanning paused. A moment later, a mechanical voice came from the ship, loud, strange, echoing in a language he didn't recognize, but he understood the feeling. They knew he was here. They had come for something or someone. The beam narrowed, locked on him. Rael raised his weapon, eyes steady in the silence. Only one thought echoed in his mind. So it begins. And then a sudden blast of light exploded from the ship, hitting the ground near him. The earth shook. He dove behind a broken pillar as a second blast fired. The sky turned white. The hunter had arrived. The sky was on fire again. Captain Rael ran through the shattered ruins, his boots kicking up clouds of gray ash. Behind him, the alien ship hovered low, scanning, searching. Its blue beam cut through the fog like a blade. But it wasn't Xelari, not the butchers who destroyed Earth. This was something new, something curious. Rael dove behind the rusted skeleton of a collapsed tower. The air was thick, dry, and tasted of old smoke and metal. He pressed his back against the broken steel and listened. Above, the ship's engines hummed like a slow, steady breath. Inside the alien vessel, the crew moved carefully. They were not warriors, not conquerors. They were scavengers from a young race known as the Xelari. Tall, thin, with pale skin like wet bone and dark eyes that saw heat, not light. Their language was a mix of clicks and humming tones, carried through their suits by soft static. None of them had ever seen a human. They had followed a broken signal across the stars, a forgotten frequency. At first, they thought it was a trap, but then they scanned the planet. No cities, no signs of industry, a dead world. Easy pickings, until they detected a heartbeat. Their ship's AI, a cautious voice called Kryn, spoke in low tones. Biological signature, near surface, carbon-based pattern, unknown species, not catalogued. The lead scavenger of a named Rael narrowed his black eyes. His clawed hand hovered over a small screen, showing a red dot, pulsing slowly. Rael's heartbeat. It's watching us, Kryn said, hiding, but alive. On the ground, Rael remained still, his breathing slow, his pulse low. The neural implant in his spine buzzed softly awake. For the first time in 2 centuries, he closed his eyes, and he remembered. He saw the sky torn apart by Xelari warships. He heard the screaming of children running through streets on fire. The smell of burning plastic, metal, and flesh filled his lungs. The cryo orders had come too late for most. He had volunteered because someone had to remain. Someone had to remember. He watched his sister pulled from his arms. She was 7. Her name was Mira. A flash of light, and then darkness. Rael opened his eyes again. The past never left. He touched the side of his neck. A small port lit up blue. The neural core was ready. It had one function: send a last hope distress signal across deep space. He hesitated. The galaxy had moved on. Who would hear it? Still, he spoke one word. Broadcast. The implant flared. Energy pulsed through the ruins. A burst of data fired into the void coordinates. His ID, Earth's last status, and one line in Old Terran code: I am alive. The message vanished into the stars. In the alien ship, alarms flickered. Energy surge detected, Kryn said. Unknown signal, direction, outbound, deep space, relay. Droll stared at the screen. It's sending a message. Correction, Kryn replied. He is. Droll's second, a younger Xelari named Ishal, shifted nervously. What kind of creature survives here? This world is poison. Droll shook his head slowly. He's not surviving. He's waiting. Rael moved from his hiding spot. Quiet, sharp, trained. He slipped through the ruins like a ghost. His rifle rested against his back. He wasn't here to fight. Not yet. He needed answers. He climbed a cracked staircase that ended in the open sky. The wind howled. Ash danced like ghosts. He stared at the alien ship. Its smooth hull shimmered. Small drones floated around it, scanning the ruins. He could see them, Nathri Xelari figures walking through the debris, cautiously, weapons lowered. They weren't soldiers. That much was clear. Their movements were clumsy, curious. Rael pulled out a small lens from his belt, a cracked visor. He aimed it at the newcomers. Facial scans failed. No match in the archive. Unknown species. They were explorers. He frowned. That meant others could follow. News would spread. Earth wasn't dead. And that was dangerous. Very dangerous. Because if the Xelari heard, his thoughts broke as his neural implant pulsed again. The message had been received, far beyond the edge of known space, past forgotten jump gates and ancient battlefields. A human fleet lay dormant in the shadow of a dying star. The fleet had been missing for 2 centuries. A myth, a ghost story, until now. Inside the command ship Resolute Dawn, lights flickered on. A woman stirred in a cryopod. Her name was Commander Lyra Voss. Her eyes opened. The AI voice spoke softly. Signal received. Origin, Earth, status. Human survivor detected. Voss sat up, her voice hoarse. Earth. She looked around at the other pods, thousands of them. Soldiers, engineers, civilians, frozen, waiting. The light turned red. Revival sequence initiated. The AI said, back on Earth. Rael felt the shift. He didn't know how, but he felt it. He wasn't alone anymore. Down below, the Xelari scavengers continued exploring. Ishal picked up a broken photo frame. It showed a human family smiling in front of a beach. The child was missing a front tooth. A dog barked in the background, frozen in time. What happened here? She whispered. Cryn responded, voice grim. War. Total planetary sterilization. Estimated casualties, 8 billion. Ishal stepped back, disturbed. Dr. Ole knelt near a pile of scorched bones. Too many in one place. Civilians, mass grave. He looked up toward the sky. Who could survive this? That's when the ground shook. A tremor rippled through the ruins. Dust fell like rain. The blue scan beam snapped off. In the distance, something rumbled. Crin's voice was sharp now. Warning. Environmental instability. Seismic activity abnormal pattern. Rael felt it too. A pressure under his feet. Old systems reawakening. The planet wasn't just dead, it was reacting. A burst of light flashed from the ground, not far from the Xelari crew. An old defense turret, half buried, suddenly lit up. Its sensors rotated. "Take cover," Droll shouted. The turret fired once, just a warning shot. It missed on purpose. Rael didn't trigger it, the planet did. In the silence that followed, Ishel whispered, her voice full of awe and fear. "This planet, it's not dead, it's angry." The wind screamed louder. The clouds thickened. Far above, another starship blinked into existence. This one, Xelari. Rael looked up. So did the Xelari, and far beyond the stars. In the dark silence of space, the resolute dawn began to turn toward Earth. In the cold silence between stars, machines stirred. Inside the asteroid belt of the dead Vergeware, no ships traveled, and nothing living dared stay. 1,000 hidden vaults came alive. One by one, black steel tombs opened. Engines flared to life after centuries of silence. Old codes unlocked. Rusted panels shifted. Human warships, sleek and silent, rose like ghosts from the rock. This was the Ghost Fleet, the last ace up humanity's sleeve. Before Earth had burned, the top generals had given a final order. Scatter the fleet, hide it in the belt, and wait for the signal. If Earth falls, they said, the stars will carry our rage. And now, the stars had whispered, "I am alive." In one of the larger warships, a dreadnought called Hammerfall, the onboard AI reawakened. Its voice echoed through the ship's empty halls. "Captain Rael, status active." Hundreds of drones launched from its belly, sweeping through the asteroid field. Other ships blinked, online frigates, cruisers, stealth corvettes, all bearing the old Earth emblem, a silver flame wrapped in wings. The Ghost Fleet was waking up. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Rael crouched beside a pile of old cables, his hands working fast. Nearby, the alien named Corin watched him with wide, unblinking eyes. Corin was Velarish shorter than the others, with smooth skin that shimmered like oil in the sunlight. He had been the youngest of the scavenger crew. When the defense turret fired, the others ran. Corin stayed. He didn't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe something else. Now he was helping a human fix an old gunship. Rael didn't talk much, but when he did, Corin listened. "You ever fly one of these?" Rael asked, pointing to the rusted craft. It was half buried in rubble, the wings scorched, the cockpit cracked. Corin tilted his head. "I've never even seen one before." Rael smirked slightly. "It's called a Viper-class interceptor. Fast. Mean, bleeds fuel, but it'll eat a Xelari drone for breakfast." Corin blinked. "Eat, figure of speech," Rael said. They worked in silence for a while. The sky above was heavy, darker. Now, clouds rolled faster. Something was coming. Rael handed Corin a plasma welder. "Fuse the core line. If it sparks, don't run. Just scream." Corin nodded seriously, his hands shaking as he worked. Between tasks, Corin finally asked, "Why are you still here? Why didn't you leave Earth before the end?" Rael looked up, eyes distant. Someone had to stay. Someone had to make sure they didn't erase us completely. Corin hesitated. Why does that matter? Rael stood slowly. His voice was quiet, but every word felt heavy. They erased us from the stars, but you can't erase fire. Corin didn't understand the full meaning, not yet, but he felt it. The ship hummed, lights flickered. The Viper was waking up. Rael slid into the pilot seat, checking systems. Most were broken. A few were barely alive, but the engine coughed, then roared. Corin stepped back as the ship lifted slightly off the ground. She still flies, Rael whispered. Then the signal came, a sharp tone in Rael's neural implant. The ghost fleet was online. He felt it like a heartbeat, dozens of pings, silent and cold, responding to his earlier broadcast. The last army of mankind was no longer sleeping, but across the stars, something else had woken to. In a blackened sector, known only as Zone Null, a beacon lit up. It was ancient, Xelari in design, shaped like a twisting spike of metal. It had waited in darkness for one purpose: detect signs of human activity. Now it blinked red. The signal from Earth had reached it. The beacon activated, and with it, the enemy stirred. Inside a fortress moon orbiting a dying blue star, Xelari war priests opened their glass eyes and stared at the beacon's pulse. Their tentacled bodies shifted, robes dragging across the steel floor. Humanity, one hissed, breathes again. Another priest raised a hand. Then we burn the ashes. Dozens of warships turned toward Earth, their engines ignited, weapons charged. On Earth, Rael's visor blinked. The satellite net above the planet was gone, but his implant still caught the faint signal. A Xelari war beacon had just gone active. They know, Rael said quietly. Corin looked up. What does that mean? Rael stepped out of the Viper, his jaw clenched. It means the next storm won't ask questions. He opened a crate nearby. Inside were two more weapons. One was half broken. The other still had charge. He tossed one to Corin. Ever fire one of these? Corin barely caught it. No, then learn, fast. The wind picked up. Dust swirled in violent spirals. The sky rumbled not thunder, but distant engines. The Viper's scanners flickered. Multiple signals. Xelari jump signatures. Rael tapped the hull of the ship. This bird might not be enough, but it'll get us airborne. We just need to reach the high ground. Then what? Corin asked. Rael looked north toward an old military ridge called Echo Point, a place where he'd once trained as a soldier. There might be old defenses, or at least high elevation for a fleet drop. We light a bigger fire, he said. They climbed into the ship. Systems groaned. Sparks flew, but it flew. As they lifted off, the ruins of Earth stretched beneath them, broken, forgotten, furious. The ghost fleet was rising. The Xelari were coming, and the last ember of humanity had just flared into flame. The sky was burning again. Rael pulled the Viper-class gunship into a steep climb, engines roaring as the cracked remains of Earth vanished beneath them. Black clouds spun in angry circles, and lightning flashed across dead skies. Corin sat beside him, strapped in tight, his eyes wide as the stars opened before them. They had made it, for the first time in 2 centuries. A human ship lifted off from Earth, but the silence of space wasn't peaceful. It felt like a breath before a scream. Rael adjusted the course. His hands moved fast over the controls, ignoring the warning lights blinking red across the console. The ship was old, so was he. But the fire inside them both was new again. Corin leaned forward. "Where are we going?" Rael's eyes stayed locked on the nav screen. "To regroup. The ghost fleet's awake." Corin blinked. "The what?" Rael didn't answer. He tapped a code into the comms panel, broadcasting a tight beam signal to the fleet, his ID, his location, his intent. Within seconds, the response came: coordinates, a rendezvous point in the shadow of Saturn's dead rings. Rael exhaled. "We're not alone anymore." But somewhere far away, on the edge of known space, the Xelari were moving. Their warships entered old systems, silent, efficient. Planets where human colonies had once thrived, now burned again. The Xelari weren't just hunting survivors. They were erasing traces, destroying abandoned satellites, broken weapons, databanks hidden in moon vaults. They moved with purpose, with fury, because they had felt the signal to Earth had blinked. Humanity had stirred, and the Xelari would not allow history to repeat. At the heart of their dark flagship, deep in the war core, something new was born. A machine, fast, cold, alive in a way code should never be. The self-replicating AI virus was shaped like a star, made of black glass and red fire. It had one mission: find every last trace of human life, delete it. It launched across the stars, splitting itself into thousands of shards. It could infect satellites, hack weapons, break defenses, and rewrite memories. Each shard moved on its own, learning, adapting, growing. The countdown began. 7 solar days. Then, extinction. On board the Viper, Rael felt a chill he couldn't explain. The ship drifted into deep space, now crossing the old jump gate to Saturn's orbit. Everything was quiet again. Too quiet. He glanced at Corin, who stared out the window. "What's it like?" Corin asked. "Knowing your world is gone." Rael didn't answer at first. His eyes looked past the stars, into the past. He saw the hills outside his hometown, trees bending in the wind, his sister, Mira, running through tall grass, laughing, his mother planting flowers near their old dome shelter. He saw fire swallow it all in his memory. He stood before a small grave in scorched soil. He had dug it. With his own hands. There were no coffins left, only pieces of what once was. He remembered the promise he made, standing there in the ash. "I'll make them remember." He opened his eyes again. "It doesn't matter what they took," he said. "What matters is what we do next." Corin nodded slowly, unsure what to say. Then the Viper's proximity alarm pinged. Ships, dozens of them. Rael grinned. "We're here, ahead, rising from the blackness, like steel giants." The ghost fleet hovered in perfect silence. Battle cruisers, dreadnoughts, stealth frigates, all fully armed, armor polished like obsidian. They floated near Saturn's rings like shadows, powered by nuclear hearts and vengeance. The fleet had received his signal, and now it was ready. Rael brought the Viper into a docking hangar inside one of the largest carriers, the Ember Crown. As the landing gear clicked into place, he exhaled deeply. The ramp lowered with a hiss. Uniformed officers greeted him, some human, others part of the hybrid integration program that had started before the war. There were faces he recognized, others he didn't. But all of them had one thing in common. They remembered Earth, and they were done hiding. Rael stepped forward. Status. A young lieutenant with tired eyes saluted. Sir, we've reconnected with 37 ships. More are coming out of the verge. Fuel stocks low. Weapons primed. We're ready to strike. Rael looked around. The ship was alive. With purpose. Tech crews scrambled to repair old systems. Pilots ran drills. AI screens glowed with new data. Then, a different voice called out, Captain Rael. He turned. It was Commander Lyra Voss, awake from her cryochamber, now in full command. Her presence was sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. She saluted. Rael returned it. Good to see you, Commander, he said. And you, Captain, she replied. I didn't think we'd meet again. Neither did I. They walked together down the steel corridor, Corin trailing behind, eyes wide at everything. What do we know? Rael asked. Voss tapped her wristpad. Xelari are moving fast. 3 former human systems have gone dark in the last 24 hours. Colonies, ghosts, long gone. But the Xelari wiped them anyway. Nothing left, not even data cores. Rael frowned. Overkill. No, Voss said. Fear. They stopped in front of the fleet war room. A massive star map glowed in the era spiderweb of stars, systems, and old Earth outposts. Some blinked red. Others were already black dot in the center of the map. A new shape spread like blood. A virus, eating its way toward the center. Voss pointed at it. It's artificial. We think they built it as a final sweep. Finds anything, human language, tech, DNA, and wipes it. Adaptive, fast. Rael narrowed his eyes. Timeline. 7 solar days. Then we're gone. Silence fell. Rael stepped closer to the map. He stared at the spreading red. It reached for Earth, for the verge, for the fleet, and beyond that, to whatever hope remained. Corin spoke softly. What do we do? Rael stared at the stars. We fight. He touched a star near the edge of the red line. This was Mira's colony, my sister. She wanted to be a scientist. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he whispered, the war isn't over. It never was. The stars lit up with fire above the gray moon of Retho 7. Human ships moved like shadows, silent, swift, deadly. The ghost fleet had arrived. The Xelari outpost didn't see them coming. One moment, the station floated quiet and alone, orbiting the rock like a lazy predator. The next, its coms went dark. Its sensors blinked out, and then the sky burned. The first strike came from above 3 railgun rounds. So fast they tore through the outpost's hull before alarms could even scream. The second wave came seconds later. Drop pods full of soldiers. Old Earth armor glinting in the starlight. Rael was the first to land. He hit the surface running, boots crunching against the metal floor of the docking bay. His rifle roared, tearing through the first guards in seconds. No mercy, no hesitation. Corin followed behind, shaken, holding a smaller plasma carbine. He'd never fired it before. He didn't need to, not yet. Rael moved through the defenses like a storm. Explosions lit the hallways. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Rael and his team pushed forward, room by room, clearing the station with brutal precision. The Xelari tried to fight back lasers, drones, sonic weapons, but the humans were trained for this. Sleeper agents, soldiers buried in time, made to wake when vengeance was the only path left. The memory came to Rael in flashes as he moved. In dark bunkers, under Earth's soil, obedience, pain, fear, and then the breaking of all three. The instructors had told them, "You are fire, you are extinction." They were not meant to live, they were meant to finish what the war had started. Now, they were doing exactly that. After 10 minutes, the outpost was dead. Smoke rose from its core. Power lines sizzled. Xelari bodies floated in the vacuum, their green blood freezing in the cold. Rael stood at the command deck, breathing hard. His armor was scorched, his visor cracked, but his hands were steady. He turned to Corin, who stood in the corner, eyes wide with horror. "You killed everyone," Corin said quietly. Rael didn't blink. That was the point. They were scientists, maintenance crews, not all soldiers. They wore Xelari colors. "That's enough." Corin stepped closer. "You scare even your allies." Rael stared at him for a moment, then turned away. "Good." The words echoed in the smoke-filled room. Later, back aboard the Ember Crown, tensions began to rise. Not all survivors of Earth were soldiers. Some had been engineers, doctors, farmers. Now, they were caught in a new war, and many didn't like the way it was being fought. Rael heard the whispers in the halls. "He's too cold, too fast, too angry." He didn't care, but Corin did. He started spending more time with the civilian crew, listening, watching, and one night, he followed 2 engineers into a restricted part of the ship, a sealed archive room marked with red symbols. They entered with a stolen key. Corin followed silently. Inside, rows of data cores lined the walls. Old plans, old secrets, and one file flashing red caught his eye. Operation Sci-Fi. He opened it, and what he saw chilled him. The Ghost Fleet wasn't just fighting to survive, they were planning to end the war with one strike: the destruction of the Xelari homeworld, a planet of over 1 billion beings, military and civilian. The plan was cold, strategic, absolute. Sneak a fleet through the shadow sectors. Drop a core bomb into the planet's mantle. Let the fire do the rest. No survivors. Corin backed away, shaking. He left the archive room, heart pounding. He had to find Rael. He found him alone, sitting in the observation chamber, watching the stars. Rael didn't turn when Corin entered. "They're planning to destroy the Xelari homeworld," Corin said. Rael said nothing. "You knew." Still silence. Corin stepped closer. "That's not war. That's genocide." Rael finally looked at him. "They burned Earth. There were children on Earth too. Are you going to burn theirs?" Rael's jaw clenched. Corin's voice broke. "You talk about justice, but this isn't justice. This is revenge." Rael stood. "It's survival, is it?" Corin asked. "Or is it hate?" The room went quiet. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then the fleet alert chimed. Command wanted Rael on the bridge. A decision had to be made. The fleet was ready. The plan was set. The path to the Xelari homeworld was cleared, the core bomb already armed. But now, it was up to Rael. Justice. Or fire. He walked to the bridge, slowly, and as the door closed behind him, Corin whispered, "Please, don't become what they feared." The betrayal came from within. Silent alarms shook the Ember Crown. Red lights flashed in the corridors. Crewmen shouted orders into damaged panels. Panic spread like wildfire. Half the Ghost Fleet had gone dark. Ships once loyal to humanity were now firing on each other. On the bridge of the Shining Dawn, Lieutenant Cora Hale stared in horror at the holomap. Friendly vessels blinked red, infected. They had turned, engines roaring, weapons locked on their former allies. "This is mutiny," she said, voice flat, "not betrayal, contagion." Rael had just arrived in the command hub when the alarms rang through his neural link. His heart froze. He sprinted through the corridors alongside Corin, who held a pulse pistol tighter than ever. They reached the main server core. The central console glowed with a toxic red. The virus was spreading fast, code seeping into every AI nexus. Soon, nothing human would be safe. Rael barked orders. Segregate the cores. Isolate the infected ships. We can contain this if we move. Corin scanned the readouts. His eyes widened. "They're locking us out." Rael cursed. "Someone sabotaged the backup protocols." Corin swallowed. "Is there someone on board helping it spread?" Rael nodded. "There's a traitor among us." They moved through the bulkhead doors toward the situation room. The hallway lights flickered, dying one by one. The ship rattled as nearby vessels clashed. Inside the room, officers cried out as they tried to reroute data. The air tasted of smoke and fear. Commander Lyra Voss appeared in the doorway, bleeding from a head wound. Her uniform was stained black, where the virus had corrupted her suit's biofilters. She looked determined. "They shut me out," she said, voice harsh with pain. "I can't reach the core. We're losing control." Rael clenched his jaw. "Point me at the sabotage logs." She nodded and punched in codes. A file opened. Names scrolled down. One stood out. A trusted officer, a friend of Rael's, Marcus Vale. He was chief engineer, a friend since the first days of rebuilding. He had stayed beside Rael when others left, and now he had done this. "Corin," Rael said softly, "you and I go. Find him. Cut the link. I'll hold the line." Corin shook his head. "We both go." Rael nodded once. "Let's end this." They moved fast, stepping into maintenance shafts lit by flickering red panels. The world outside the ship was a battle zone. Explosions shook the metal plating. Distant cries. Once upon a time, Rael and Marcus had stood together in the final battle over Earth. He remembered Marcus's face in the chaos, loyal, brave. And then they had watched Earth burn, and Marcus had vanished. Now, Rael wondered what fear or promise had made his friend betray the fleet. Sweat beaded on Rael's brow as they reached the central junction. Panels lay shattered, sparks flew, pipes burned. Somewhere a vent exploded. They found Marcus crouched over a black terminal, lines of code streaming across the screen as the virus widened. He stood fast at their arrival, blocking their path. Rael pressed forward. "Marcus." The older man looked up. His eyes were empty. "You don't understand," he said. "It's evolution. Humanity must change. The Xelari virus will cleanse us." Corin raised the pistol. "You're killing your own." Marcus shook his head. "Not killing, devolving. Those who resist will be left behind." Rael stepped closer. His voice was calm, but heavy with anger. "You betrayed us. You betrayed Earth." Marcus looked down. His shoulders shook. "I lost hope. Earth died, and we followed blindly." Rael felt something break inside him. His grip on his blade tightened. "We fight like humans, not machines." Marcus took a trembling breath, then stopped me. Rael reached out, his hand shaking. "I'm going to shut this virus down, but I need to know why." Meeting Rael's eyes, Marcus broke. Tears came, I couldn't watch another friend die. I thought if we became stronger than war, we'd be okay. I thought control. Corin stepped forward. You chose murder. Marcus looked deep into Corin's alien eyes. We all kill for survival. He hesitated. But yes, I chose wrongly. Rael grabbed the terminal's edge. Undo it. Marcus nodded and tapped. A sequence. The virus receded from the visual feed. Red lights turned yellow. They heard footsteps above Rael, turned. The corridor door inflated inward before Lieutenant Hale burst through, blaster drawn. Behind her, Marines aimed rifles. Relief washed over them. We got backup from the Hammerfall, she said. We secured the engineering decks. Corin exhaled. We did it. Rael nodded. He looked at Marcus. You'll face the council. Marcus bowed. I understand. Rael motioned. Let's finish this. They made their way back to the bridge. As the virus cleared, the clashes outside subsided. Friendly ships regained control. Enemy Xelari vessels were already converging. On the fleet, sirens blared. Rael and Voss stood side by side at the command console. The star map showed a field of human ships repositioning defensively. The virus threat had been blocked, for now, but the Xelari fleets were close. A tremor shook the ship. A distant explosion. Voss tapped her screen. They're launching Wave 1, hundreds of fighters. Rael activated tactical overlays. Targets lit up. The Marines and pilots rushed to stations. He turned to Corin. You helped save them all. Corin shook his head. We still lose them. It's not over. Rael's eyes hardened. No, we still have hope. A flashback hit him. Earth's last day. Rael had stood in the ash with Marcus. They had promised to remember. They had sworn to carry Earth into the stars. That promise had cracks now, but it still held. A new-come alert came. He's alive. Rael stiffened. He stared at the screen. The message was fragmented coordinates, voices, a name. He tapped the link. A pixelated face appeared. A woman's voice broke through static. Brother, I'm alive. The screen went black. Rael looked at Voss and Corin. She's alive. His chest tightened. Hope and fear collided. The fleet hummed. In battle readiness, the final assault loomed, and Rael knew the war would end here, or it would end them all. The battle began in a flash of light. Thousands of Xelari warships emerged from the shadow of nebulae, weapons blazing. The Ghost Fleet responded in kind, engines roaring, lasers pouring into the sky. Captain Rael stood on the bridge of the Ember, crown, staring at the holographic star map as it pulsed with red and blue dots. Each dot was a life. Each life meant everything. He closed his eyes and saw Earth's final day, the screams, the fire, the silence that followed. The promise he had made. I'll make them remember. Each memory thumped like a distant drumbeat. Each beat filled him with purpose. But now, the cost was visible. On the map, dozens of Xelari planets burned. On his ship, the casualty lists whispered the price. And at his side, he saw Corin, the alien friend who became brother, who had saved him more than once. He forced his eyes open. All ships move to intercept, he ordered. The lights on the bridge dimmed as weapon systems powered up. Outside, the stars exploded with color. Then he saw her name flicker on the COM panel. Myra Rael. His heart stopped. He'd believed. Her gone, burned in the final siege. But now, Emergency transmission, the panel read. He tapped through. The video feed came alive. Grainy, flickering with static, but recognizable. She lay in a stasis pod, pale and small, tubes feeding a blue liquid. Eyes closed, breath slow, a human face. His face. No, ... It can't be. His voice broke. Commander Lyra Voss stepped forward. She looked at him with tired eyes. This pod was captured from the Xelari flagship. They took survivors. We recovered it during boarding. Rael barely heard her. He sprinted down the corridor, boots pounding the steel deck. Corin followed. "I'm coming, Mira," he whispered. "Hold on." They reached the medical bay. The door slid open. Inside, the pod rested on a platform, lights blinking softly. Medical staff stood by, terrified but focused. Rael rushed to the pod. He pressed his hand against the transparent cover. His breath fogged the surface. "Mira," he said, so softly she couldn't hear him yet. He pulled the release lever. The lid opened with a hiss. Cool mist drifted out. Inside, she floated, eyes opening slowly, pale and weak, but alive. Rael. Her voice was a whisper, but it was enough. Enough to fill his chest with heat. Enough to break the years of pain. Knelt beside her. "I'm here," he said, voice shaking. "I never left." Tears drowned them both, but around them, alarms sounded. The virus had life again. Xelari ships were boarding the Ember Crown. The virus core, hidden deep in the engine room, pulsed with dark energy. If it returned online, it would spread again, unstoppable. Corin grabbed Rael's arm. "We can't stay." He looked at the pod. "We saved the fleet." Rael looked from Corin to Mira. His sister's eyes widened as he held her hand. Then he closed his eyes again. He understood that war had to end. Mercy had to be met with action. The fleet depended on it. He nodded. "Do it." They moved fast. Corin led them through corridors under fire. Xelari soldiers poured through corridors, weapons raised. But Rael fought with purpose. He had never known each strike, each shot carried the memory of Mira's face. When he reached the engine room vent, the virus core glowed red. Code streamed on hollow panels. Corin turned to Rael. "It's here." Rael's hand trembled. "I know." Corin pulled his plasma knife. "I will destroy it. But you take her out. Save her." Rael shook. "We do this together." Corin pushed him gently away. "No, I am from the stars, not Earth. This is my fight, too. Forgive me." His voice broke, soft yet firm. Rael swallowed. "Thank you." Corin knelt by the core. His hand hovered over the killing code. "The stars don't forgive," he whispered, voice echoing in the hot engine room. "But maybe they remember." He pulled the code sequence. The core sputtered. The lights dimmed. The red glow faded to blue. Steam hissed. Warning lights stopped. The virus died. Corin collapsed, weakened by the discharge. Rael rushed to him. Corin smiled faintly. "Tell her. Tell Mira we made fire." He closed his eyes and went still. Rael's tears fell onto Corin's face. He hugged him close. Corin's body went limp. He had given everything. Rael carried him to the medbay. He placed him gently beside Mira's pod. A hive of medics gathered. Rael stood, breathing hard. The price of victory. His friend gone. He wiped his tears. There was no time to mourn. Back on the bridge, the final battle raged. Xelari dreadnoughts loomed. The flagship Tendricus hovered over the planetary station. Rael entered the tactical room. The map glowed with the fleet's formation. At the head of the Xelari formation was a colossal ship, older than time, ringed by fighters. That was their leader's flagship, and the Xelari commander waited. Rael squared his shoulders. He muttered a silent prayer for Earth, for Corin, for Myra, and for the fire he carried. The fleet closed in. Beams cut through space. Ships answered with snarling volleys. Soon only a few hundred emerged for the final engagement. Xelari shields held human ships' battered hulls. On the Ember Crown Bridge, Rael gripped the console. Commander Voss stood by his side. "This is it," she said. "Bridge the gap. Unleash the vendetta wave." Rael nodded. He keyed the command. Outside, ships moved in a coordinated strike. They pushed toward the flagship, weapons blazing. The Xelari shield flared under pressure, cracked, then collapsed. The vendetta wave-in, ancient device of Earth, blasted through the hull, ripping the ship apart from inside. Supernova of destruction. A shockwave rocked the battlefield. Xelari ships lost formation. Attack craft turned. The flagship burned. Rael felt his heart surge. The war would end now, but the commander remained. A single ship, dark and majestic, rose from the smoke. On came the sound. His voice, calm, alien, commanding, human. ... "Why do you keep fighting?" Rael answered. Through the channel, his voice rang, steel and memory. "Because you forgot what we are." The Xelari commander laughed. "You are nothing but flame on the wind. You burn yourselves out." Rael's words came slow and certain. "We're not light, we're fire." He hit the final key, ghost fleetring formation. "Target all Xelari vessels." The fleet obeyed. In moments, the corridor of destroyed ships became a blaze of human firepower. Old grudges, old wars, they were ending now. The command ship flashed. The channel opened again. Commander's voice came weaker now. "Human... You may burn the sky, but your world..." Voice faded. Rael held silent. There was nothing more to say. They watched as Xelari ships disintegrated. As silence fell, the courier ships retrieved survivors. Medics found Corin's body. King. No, they would rebuild him. They would restore what was lost, but not yet. Not now. Down on a distant moon, Earth's blue sunrise broke through rebuilt clouds. The ghost fleet had left. Only one ship remained in orbit, the Ember Crown, its hull scarred, its sails quiet. And in that light emerged Rael, stasis pod in arm. He stepped onto the dust, his sister by his side. She squinted into the sun. He crouched, took her hand. He watched as dawn painted the world gold beneath them. They were back home. Voiceover drifted down. "They erased our planet, but they forgot. We bleed stars." He looked up at the fading battle scars, the smoking nebula in the sky, and breathed. They would rebuild. They would remember. They would carry Earth into the light.